Good morning, and welcome back to another episode of Mindful Drawing. Today we're going to explore a little experiment with some of my background in architecture and using a series of parallel lines to enter into a three-dimensional space. Let's ease into our exercise today with a bit of a warm-up. This one just to be a freeing experience to get the hand engaged with that page and primed and ready to explore through drawing. So I've got my nice collection of drawing implements here, some regular pencils, some art pencils, a nice marker, some mechanicals, just things I can grab to explore different ways of feeling in these little mindful practice exercises. I think it's nice to switch things up and just to kind of play in this space here. Why don't we begin by just making some squiggles on a page, maybe letting the pen wiggle back and forth a little bit. I'm using a nice 6B pencil here. It's got a kind of inky, smooth flow to it, a little bit of that velvety, heavy graphite that's so nice to apply tone to a piece of paper. And just letting it wiggle, getting loose. Maybe wiggle the spine a little bit as well. Move the body back and forth. Think about the beginning and the end, and let the arm, hand take over on our way between the two. And you can start to play a little more into that wiggle and bring it back and forth. Go from the beginning all the way around to end where we start. Similar to our circles, here we just have a free form shape. Maybe let it grow outwards and expand a bit, just to cover parts of the page, moving very freely, and the mind be very calm and open, just seeing where that curve goes, not worrying where it actually begins on the page, picking a place quickly without too much intention or consideration, just letting the squiggles flow and overlap each other. We start to get this dense network of curves and lines with some character of our body and our tactile sense embedded within this page, something we can celebrate through these drawings. There's a part of us in them, a part of that connection between us and the page and the pencil or pen that we're using. It's just very unique and part of our expression. After doing this a bit, I'm feeling pretty warmed up. There's always the opportunity to switch to the other hand or play around, but I think this has gotten me good, and this dense flowing network of lines is something we'll use in our larger format drawing to find space within the page with some techniques from my architecture background. I'll discard that warm-up exercise and I think switch to a slightly more technical pencil. This is a large 0.9 millimeter mechanical pencil, so it gives a pretty thick, heavy line and a good amount of flow to it as well. There's a drawing type often used in architectural drawing called the oblique, the plan oblique or elevation oblique. It's similar to an axonometric drawing in a way to three-dimensionally describe information, objects, and shapes onto a piece of paper. This isn't so much a tutorial on the oblique, but I like it as a kind of focus point somewhere in the back of the mind. But don't worry if you're not familiar with it. I'll kind of just use the space of the page to generate it. And I'm going to begin by drawing a series of vertical lines going from top to bottom of arbitrary, consistent or inconsistent length, and just letting them produce a rhythm here on the page, kind of shifting them around, similar to the squiggles, just placing them where it feels right to begin and following the line through with our mind to the end. They could be densely packed or loosely scattered across the page. And as we get going with it. Thinking about how we're moving our arm and our hands, not being too concerned if they're perfectly vertical on this page. Doing our best to keep them with a little bit of parallel and tension, but there's no problem if they drift from that initial direction a little bit. We're just allowing our hand and eye to create a field in one direction here. And it might be an opportunity to start connecting the breath with those lines. And breathe out as you draw down the page. Breathe in as you relocate, and out again. And slowing down the rhythm a little bit. Coming in real close with that attention. Finding our position that we feel comfortable in, and we could spend time in here for 20 minutes or so, exploring this drawing. And after a few more marks in this direction, as we're starting to fill the space, take a few more deep breaths. We're going to shift our angle of interface with this and move to a more diagonal approach. Something at the 45 or the 30-degree angle across the page. It might help to just kind of move the arm to find a comfortable angle there. There's no specific to this, but we'll perform a similar action to drawing this series of vertical rhythmic lines to a series of oblique rhythmic lines. So to begin, another layer to this drawing, and start to draw again from away to near and work at a new angle. Still connecting our eye to the stroke that we're making, our breath to that drawing action, maintaining a degree of parallelness, but not being concerned with where they begin and end relative to the other lines. Just picking a spot and drawing towards yourself. We might start to question what we see and say, are my lines parallel? Are they the same length? Why are they stacked or staggered? How am I making these decisions? And those thoughts creep in, and we can use our breath to let them back out again. And for now, just connect each line as its own moment, creating its own mark, its own little world on the page. And from time to time, some will wiggle and not match their neighbors, and that's okay. Maybe they're not even lines, or we try drawing away from our position for a little bit to engage other muscles of the hand and arm. Remembering to come back to our breath. And as I'm getting a pretty significant density to this directionality, I'm going to switch one more time and work at an angle counter to this original. Maybe it's the same, maybe it's at a little bit more perpendicular direction to it. And again, finding what feels comfortable for the position you're in and where your arm moves. For me, I think it's going to be kind of a drawing across now from the top down towards the bottom for a bit. Maybe I'll switch at some point if I feel my arm getting tired. Establish that first mark with a breath and follow its guidance to create the successive parallel flowing marks. I can find it very freeing from composition to jump around a little bit, work in new areas, or work quickly. Just let the hand do its thing. Trust the pencil or pen to make that mark for us. I'm bringing my attention to the weight of my hand as it is applying pressure through gravity to this pencil and helping it make that mark, providing just enough friction to wear off some of the graphite onto the paper, the texture of the surface, the weight of my hand, the motion of my shoulder and my arm, and my breath. And if you're watching the video or following along, you might think that there's a bit of consistency here, and that may be in this style of drawing or this way of looking. Just a lot of practice, a lot of time spent working like this on a piece of paper and teaching this tactic. Don't worry about it. The level of parallelness or consistency is not too important. Just the connection with that act of drawing. Maybe switching it up and drawing up across the page for a little bit. And as we've developed this field, we could start to do some final exercising to play back and forth between the different directionalities, adding a few more verticals. Adding a few more diagonals in different dimensions. We're starting to get a nice, dense network here of lines, a possible world to draw into and bring our attention to. And I think that's working fairly well for me. And after this more mechanical, technical development of a field, I'm going to switch back to that 6B pencil here and spend a little time just exploring this space, letting my mind wander through it. In a sense, what we've created is a Z-axis, an X-axis, and a Y-axis through these, and they contain a relationship, but that none of them right now are specific and defined. We're not drawing an object or a shape, but instead we can begin to weave our way through this, let our fingers be guided by our eye to make new creative marks. And so I'll pick a place somewhere, maybe at an intersection, and just begin to follow the line for a little while. And when I hit another crossing, switch direction and flow along it. Really feeling kind of like the blind contour mechanism, that speed of my fingers adjusting the pencil to track along a line. My arm following this network of shifting axes and seeing where it might take me. I like to reflow over lines just to feel them, going at a second or third pass to reinforce that tracking of the eye and the hand. And maybe as we need to switch direction, we can engage with our body more and try to switch hands. moving this along. And we've got such a complex, visually dense field here. We're going to keep just tracking all day, finding new directions. As we're getting used to this game, playing here, we could begin to shift our attention to tracking flow. We move more quickly through the different axes and just move along. Switch direction, move again, switch direction, shift, realign, extend and track. Playing a game in this space we've created. Keeping that focus on the pencil, on where it's meeting the page, and how it's tracking a curve or an edge. And maybe you find the end of a trajectory, and you can step back and take a breath and realign the shoulders and the body. Consider what medium is flowing for you and re-engage the world space and see where it'll take you. Start in a new place. This definition of axes as a way to oscillate between 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions is a great exercise for our brain. It's pulling in the visual pattern matching aspect of the 2-dimensional, tying that with the spatial connections in a 3-dimensional mind. And just allowing us to discover spaces within this drawing. Here I'm bringing more pressure and attention to my graphite, letting it really fill up parts of the page. Working it back and forth to thicken the elements. Reflowing through the sequence. Beginning again and exploring what we can discover. We'll take a few minutes just to draw, look for or find new connections, see where this might go for us. As I'm starting to discover planes in space, allow myself to fill those in, to record what I've found with my eyes within this network of lines. And start to establish these planar territories. Maybe you found some volumes. Maybe it's just a squiggly pipes screensaver flowing across your paper, or a scratch of parallel lines in various directions. In each of these drawings, an exercise in letting the flow and freedom of the eye and the hand start to create unexpected experiences and to follow them and see where they may lead, let our visual senses develop a creative expression. If you're exploring this shading, it's a good chance to really practice some of our technique and rigor to keep that hand up off the page using something soft like graphite. To really keep my arm engaged, make sure all this mindful practice is being put to good use here to establish good techniques. Let's thank our hands and our eyes and these pages and pencils and pens for allowing us this time to draw together and explore. I hope you've had a wonderful morning or evening wherever you are and can enjoy these practices, hopefully learn from them, and just use them as an opportunity to relax. If you like what I do here, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll be putting up more of these all summer long, at least once a week, as they are my time midweek to really stretch out and feel a connection to these spaces where I began my interest in visual arts and drawing, and that have established my practice for my whole life. I hope you do well, have a great day, and see you next time.